biggest thing is that I want my daughter to be safe in our country and have every right that every other child has in this country. So what legislation would you either write or support to ensure the safety of trans individuals in our country, same-sex marriage in our country, same-sex adoption in our country, LGBT rights?
So I think we've come a ways, socially acceptance at a certain level around the rights of the LGBTQ community. Even in Texas, I remember being in high school and it was the #1 way that people would offend each other or discriminate against each other was because of their sexual orientation. And now I worked at my last organization with young people, and that just, for the most of them, didn't exist. It was just part of who they were, and it was completely accepted. So I think we, as a country, came far with the Supreme Court decision. But a lot of people thought that then we would start legislating the rights of the LGBTQ community once Hillary won. And because Hillary didn't win, it is completely stopped. So we need to pass things like the Equality Act that will allow for the LGBTQ community not just have marriage equality, but full equality in the workplace, to not allow for discrimination in the workplace, in housing, and in the voting booth. And then we need to also look at families and adoption, and foster care children programs that are discriminating against LGBTQ families. Families are families, period. So those are some of the pieces of legislation that I support. And of course, we also have to deal with, one of the issues that I want to see more resources for is that there has been a real increase across the country of hate crimes against communities of color, against trans communities, and we are not fully resourcing our federal government to investigate those and persecute and prosecute them as the hate crimes they are.
I'd like to know your thoughts about, healthcare needs to be overhauled, but about the
Here and then talk about how I want to see it. That's both criminal and healthcare, right? So on healthcare, I am one of the few candidates in this race that supports Medicare for all, and I want to explain why I do. Look, I think by having a health insurance system that has allowed private health insurance companies to profit off of our pain, our suffering, and illness, we've not only created the most expensive healthcare system in the entire world, but one with some of the worst healthcare outcomes of any industrialized nation. And so for me, by any measure, that is a broken system. And I think the way we make sure that it becomes a fundamental American right for every single person to go to the doctor when they are sick and have the highest quality healthcare when they need it is through Medicare for all. The reason I also support a system that we are all bought into is because I believe when we are all bought into the same system, we make sure it works. Social Security, every time it comes under attack by the right wing, you know why they haven't been able to get away with it? Because we're all bought into that same system. We all fight to defend it. But when we base systems in this country, benefits solely based on income, we don't all fight to protect it. And you look at other programs where it is based on income, it is often substandard care. And I don't want substandard care for Americans. I want quality care for every single American. The last thing I'm going to say about why I fight for it is because in this country, sometimes I have been frustrated by our own Democratic candidates. And the reason I've been frustrated by them is because so many times they are willing to concede to a policy position they simply believe Republicans are willing to accept. I negotiated on behalf of workers. If I would never have accepted the bare minimum from them as my starting negotiating place, they would have fired me. If you had a car and you told me it was worth $10,000 and you wanted me to sell it, but the bare minimum you would accept is $5,000, and the first person that walked in, I said she's willing to take $5,000, you'd be very angry at me. Why are we willing to accept that from our elected officials? I will always fight for the policy position I believe is in the best interest, that will cover the most people. I understand sometimes we may not land there. The policy is a negotiation process, and I will always start from the biggest, boldest plan that I believe is in the best interest of all of us.